Midnight news coming to you live from Algiers. I'm Mariam Zien, and here are your top stories for tonight. Gaza Health Ministry reports over 33,000 Palestinians killed and more than 76,000 injured in the ongoing Zionist military offensive. Global support for Palestinian statehood grows stronger. Algeria's call resonates as Norway and other nations pledge recognition. Also coming up next, U.S. President Joe Biden warns of potential Iranian attack on Israel sooner than later and urges Tehran not to attack. And China condemns U.S.-Japan-Philippines summit over South China Sea and warns against provocation. Hello and welcome again to the program. Palestinian Health Ministry in Gaza said on Friday that at least 33,634 Palestinians have been killed and 76,214 were injured in the occupation's military offensive in the Strip since October 7th. The same source added that 89 Palestinians were killed and 120 were injured in the last 24 hours. In the same context, Palestinian news agency Wafa said 29 civilians were killed on Friday and others were injured as a result of the occupation's warplanes bombing of a house in the Gaza Strip. Wafa added that the occupation warplanes also targeted the northern areas of the Nusayrat camp in the central Gaza Strip, while the occupation army blew up a number of buildings north of the camp. The Hamas movement confirmed that the heavy pounding of residential neighborhoods in the Nusayrat camp, which is part of a military operation perpetrated by the Zionist occupation army in the central region of the Gaza Strip, which is crowded with displaced people, is a new episode of the Zionist genocidal war against the Palestinian people. Hamas pointed out in a statement that the camp has been subjected for 2 days to a barbaric attack that targeted civilian facilities and citizens' homes, resulting in dozens of martyrs and wounded, in a clear expression of disregard for all international and judicial resolutions and calls for an end to the aggression against the Gaza Strip. The government media office in Gaza said that the occupation army deliberately and intentionally targeted and seriously injured 3 Palestinian journalists on Friday during their media coverage of the ongoing aggression north of the Nusayrat camp in the central Gaza Strip. The government media office in Gaza pointed out in a statement that this crime is part of a series of blatant violations that targeted Palestinian journalists, killing so far 140 of them. The office stressed that Zionist occupation forces continue to deliberately target Palestinian journalists in the Strip in a way to prevent them from delivering the truth to the world. The Zionist occupation targeted a vehicle belonging to the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, which was waiting to enter the besieged northern Gaza Strip to distribute humanitarian aid. This attack followed a raid perpetrated less than 2 days ago against the vehicle of the World Central Kitchen organization, which claimed the lives of 7 relief workers.
I was in that car that was hit. It was waiting at a holding point just south of the Wadi Gaza checkpoint. where we are often instructed to wait before being called through the checkpoint. We were waiting there as instructed, and gunfire broke out in the vicinity. It seemed to be coming from the direction of the checkpoint towards civilians, who then turned and fled from the checkpoint. Luckily, myself and my colleagues, we were all safe, but this just underscores how dangerous it is for humanitarian aid workers in Gaza at the moment, that incidents like this continue to happen when they absolutely shouldn't.
The United Nations has reported a rise in waterborne diseases across Gaza due to inadequate access to clean water and soaring temperatures. The United Nations Humanitarian Coordinator in Gaza, Jamie McGoldrick, highlighted that residents are receiving insufficient water supplies, exacerbating the situation. This crisis has been compounded by the disruption of sewage systems since mid-October, coinciding with increased aggression in the region. The Al-Quds Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad movement, published scenes of mortar shelling against occupation soldiers and entrenchments in the city of Khan Yunis in the southern Gaza Strip.
أما أن نعيش فوق الأرض غرماء أو تحت الأرض شهداء، الله أكبر ولله الحمد.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الله أكبر.
On Friday, a young Palestinian man was killed in Tubas when Israeli occupation forces fired at the vehicle he was traveling in. According to a brief statement from the Palestinian Red Crescent, their teams received a report about the shooting incident and dispatched an ambulance to the scene. However, the occupation forces seized the car and those inside it, eventually leaving the vehicle near the Tamoon junction, where the deceased man was found. The young man's death occurred just a few hours after another young Palestinian man was fatally shot by occupation forces during their raid on Al-Fari'a camp south of Tubas. The Islamic resistance movement Hamas mourned the martyrs Muhammad Rasul Umar from Tubas and Muhammad Isam Shahmawi from Al-Fari'a camp, who rose at dawn on Friday during confrontations in the Tubas and Al-Fari'a areas in the northern occupied West Bank. Hamas confirmed in a statement that the brave resistance in the occupied West Bank will continue, escalate, and increase in presence and influence, stressing that the blood of the Palestinian martyrs in the West Bank, Gaza, and all parts of Palestine will thwart Zionists' plans to remain on Palestinian lands, calling for ongoing attacks to target the occupation army and settler gangs. Still in the Palestinian file, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas engaged in a telephone conversation with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan. President Abbas provided an update to his Turkish counterpart on the latest Palestinian developments, particularly the ongoing Israeli aggression in Gaza. emphasized the urgent need to halt the extermination of Palestinians and called for the swift delivery of humanitarian aid, relief, and medical assistance to the affected areas. President Abbas also expressed gratitude for Turkey's steadfast support for the Palestinian cause and its people in various international forums. President Erdogan, in turn, reaffirmed Turkey's unwavering support for the Palestinian people and their legitimate rights until they are fully achieved. In another slap to the occupation in Palestine, a number of countries, with the last being Norway, have expressed their readiness to recognize Palestine as an independent state and support its membership in the UN. This follows calls from Algeria before the United Nations to grant it a permanent membership at the United Nations. Nabil Khazini has more details.
فإن المجلس الوطني يعلن باسم الله وباسم الشعب العربي الفلسطيني قيام دولة فلسطين وعاصمتها.
36 years ago, and from the Algerian capital, Algiers, an establishment of a Palestinian state was declared. Since then, the list of countries recognizing an independent state of Palestine has been growing. Today, it is still the case. A number of European countries, with the last of which being Norway, have expressed their readiness to recognize a Palestinian statehood.
Norway is ready to make a decision on recognizing a Palestinian state. It is to be decided on the moment and the context in close coordination with like-minded countries.
The issue of recognizing the state of Palestine has gained momentum in the past weeks, as Spain, Ireland, Slovenia, Belgium and Malta announced their readiness to activate this measure. This is just another slap for the occupation, who has always been doing everything to clear Palestine off the map.
The people of Palestine have long sought the dignity of their own country and sovereignty, a home that, like Ireland and Spain, can take its place amongst the nations of the earth. When we move forward, we would like to do so with as many others as possible, to lend weight to the decision and to send the strongest message.
Since 1988, the majority of the 193 UN member states recognize the Palestinian territories as a state. Today, the Algerian call for an independent Palestinian state with a fully fledged membership in the UN seems to echo stronger than ever before.
Inflicting profound
US President Joe Biden said Friday he expects Iran to launch an attack against Israel sooner than later, and stressed that in his message to Tehran that it's not to do it. US had been on high alert for a significant Iranian retaliatory attack on Israel in recent days as fears grow of a wider regional war. Let's take a listen.
Mr. President, to Iran in this moment.
Don't. We are devoted to the defense of Israel. We will support Israel. We will help defend Israel, and Iran will not succeed.
The White House stated that the United States informed Iran that it was not involved in the airstrike targeting a top Iranian military commander in Damascus and played no part in the incident. White House spokesperson Karine Jean-Pierre said Washington cautioned Tehran against using the attack as a reason to escalate tensions in the region or target American facilities or individuals. She emphasized that the U.S. does not wish for the regional conflict to intensify.
So obviously we don't want this conflict to spread. We've been very clear about that. And we've been very clear that to Iran that we're not involved in the Damascus strike, right? We've been also very clear. I'm not going to get into public back and forth. We communicated to Iran that the U.S. had no involvement in the strike, as I just mentioned, that happened in Damascus, and we warned Iran not to use this attack as a pretext to escalate further in the region or attack U.S. facilities or personnel. I'm going to be super mindful not to speak beyond that from here or elaborate further, but we've been very clear.
The U.S. State Department said that Secretary Antony Blinken spoke with the foreign ministers of Turkey, China, and Saudi Arabia during the past 24 hours to make clear that escalation in the Middle East is not in the interest of any party. U.S. State Department spokesman Matthew Miller stressed in a press conference that Washington is still concerned about the danger of escalation in the region, specifically after the threats directed by Iran against Israel.
Something we have been working to mitigate and contain since He talked to the Turkish foreign minister last night. He talked to Wang Yi this morning, and then early this morning, and then talked to the Saudi foreign minister later this morning. I don't have any calls to announce, but we have been engaged in a series of contacts, not just at his level, but at other levels too, to talk to foreign counterparts to send this very clear message to Iran that they should not escalate this conflict. We continue to be concerned about the risk of escalation in the Middle East, something we have been working to mitigate and contain since the attacks of October 7th, and specifically about the threats made in recent days by Iran against the state of Israel and the Israeli people.
Germany warned its citizens to leave Iran, saying that there was a risk both of a sudden escalation in Tehran's existing tensions with Israel and that Germans might be at risk of arbitrary arrests in the country. The German Foreign Office, quoted by Reuters news agency, wrote in a fresh travel warning issued on Friday that it cannot be excluded that air, land, and sea transport routes could be affected. The Foreign Office added that German citizens are at concrete risk of being arbitrarily arrested and interrogated and being given long prison sentences, stressing that citizens with Iranian and German nationality are especially at risk. China summoned Japanese and Filipinos diplomats over remarks expressed during a summit of the leaders of the United States, Japan, and Philippines, saying it opposes countries manipulating bloc politics. Marwa Bilaiwar provides you more details.
China on Friday condemned and criticized the United States, Japan, and the Philippines trilateral summit after U.S. President Joe Biden vowed to defend the Philippines from any attack in the South China Sea.
China is firmly opposed to the manipulation of bloc politics by the countries concerned, to any practice that provokes or intensifies conflicts to the detriment of the strategic security and interests of other countries, and to the establishment of closed and exclusive small circles in the region.
The Philippines and China had several maritime run-ins last month that included the use of water cannon in addition to heated verbal exchanges. The U.S. reiterated on Friday its pledge to support the Philippines in the field of security and defense.
An armed attack on Philippine armed forces, public vessels, or aircraft in the Pacific, including the South China Sea, would invoke U.S. defense commitments under our Mutual Defense Treaty. Both of our countries have invested significant time and resources to address our shared security challenges, and we're going to keep building our partnership.
Chinese officials have bristled at criticism over their action in the South China Sea and blamed the U.S. for exacerbated tensions. Beijing summoned Japanese and Filipino diplomats to express dissatisfaction over comments that arose during Thursday's summit in Washington. As China objects and warns of any U.S. warships' presence near the South China Sea, the U.S. and its allies, among them Japan, have been gradually increasing their military presence in the region to counter what they perceive as a threat from Beijing, risking ratcheting up tensions in the Pacific, experts suggest.
Moving on to Libya, calm has returned to the capital Tripoli after the firefighting that broke out on Thursday evening between armed forces. Local media, quoting the official spokesman for the Ministry of Interior, reported that clashes had ended and no casualties or injuries were reported, while police forces were deployed to secure the capital. According to local sources, the clashes came after a member of the state security service was arrested at a judicial police checkpoint, and explosions were heard throughout Tripoli, followed by heavy machine gun fire. In alarming news from the United Nations, the humanitarian crisis stemming from the war in Sudan is expected to deteriorate significantly in the coming months. There are growing concerns that certain regions may face famine if the conflict persists, and neighboring African countries could also be impacted unless the fighting ceases. Christian Lindmeier, spokesperson for the World Health Organization, emphasized the urgency of the situation, noting that a year has passed since the war began, yet the crisis is poised to escalate further. With an estimated 70 to 80% of health facilities rendered inoperable due to the ongoing hostilities, and the reality on the ground is even more dire than perceived.
Time is running out. Without a stop to the fighting and unhindered access for the delivery of humanitarian aid, Sudan's crisis will dramatically worsen in the months to come and could impact the whole region. We are only seeing the tip of the iceberg, and the situation could be much more dire in reality.
Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of Sudan has expressed its utmost astonishment and condemnation of the humanitarian conference on April 15 in Paris, convened by France, Norway, the United Kingdom, the USA, and the European Union, denouncing that such a conference is convened on a matter concerning Sudan without consultation or coordination with its government and without its participation. The Sudanese Foreign Ministry pointed out that this move constitutes a great disregard for international law, the United Nations Charter, and the principle of sovereignty. In other developments, China expressed its strong opposition to the existing official and military dealings between Taiwan and the U.S., stressing that Taiwan is an internal Chinese issue that does not tolerate any foreign interference. Chinese defense spokesman Wu Qian said in a press conference in Beijing on Friday that his country will directly strike all forms of separatist activities in Taiwan, calling on the authorities in Taipei to abandon playing the role of pawns for others, as he put it. These statements come in response to the visit of the Taiwanese Navy commander to Hawaii, the headquarters of the U.S. command in the Indo-Pacific region.
The Chinese side is firmly opposed to any form of official exchanges and military contacts between the United States and China's Taiwan region. Our position is clear-cut. Taiwan is an inalienable part of China's territory. To solve the Taiwan question is China's internal affair and brooks no external interference. We sternly warn the Democratic Progressive Party authorities that to serve as other spouse willingly is bound to be abandoned, and any attempt to seek secession by force will only lead to a dead end. The PLA will deal head-on blows to any form of Taiwan secessionist activities.
To economy news now, the International Energy Agency reduced its forecast for oil demand growth this year, noting lower than expected consumption in the OECD countries and a decline in factory activity. Global oil demand growth is expected to ease to 1.2 million barrels a day this year and 1.1 million barrels per day in 2025. The International Energy Agency also expected oil production to rise in 2024 by about 770,000 barrels per day amid an increase in supplies from outside OPEC Plus countries. For more international news, let's follow this report by Hossam Barkan.
Almost 100,000 people have been evacuated due to floods in Kazakhstan, the country's emergencies ministry said on Friday, as rapidly warming temperatures melted heavy snow and ice and dislodged trapped water and mud in places. Flooding this month hit more than half of the country's regions, and a state of emergency remained in effect in 8 out of Kazakhstan's 17 provinces. A group of Myanmar junta troops that retreated from their base in the frontier town, Myawaddy, to a bridge along the Thai border were attacked by resistance groups using drones on Friday, according to local media reports. Video showed Thai armed forces patrolling in Mae Sot, near the border with Myanmar. Supporters and opponents of former Ecuadorian Vice President Jorge Glass convened outside the National Justice Court on Thursday as a judge deliberated on a habeas corpus request for Glass. If approved, this legal resource could secure Glass's release following his detention in a raid on the Mexican embassy last week, where he has resided since December. As of Thursday night, the judge had not yet reached a decision. Protesters in Amman marched in support of Palestinians in Gaza after Friday prayers. They carried signs reading, "Our Eid is with the victory of Gaza," referring to the end of the fasting month of Ramadan in support of the Gaza Strip. Millions of Muslims around the world were observing Eid al-Fitr with festivities, feasts and family gatherings, without forgetting supporting the Gaza Strip.
That was it for tonight's edition. Thank you for watching. Take care and bye-bye.